Hi, my name is Chris Williams, and I want to talk today a little bit about cruise and comfort air conditioning systems. I've just installed a cruise and comfort 12-volt air conditioning system in my 2020 Ram ProMaster 2500 159 wheelbase van. This particular air conditioning is a true 12-volt AC. The particular model that I've got from Cruise and Comfort is the HD12L. It's a 12-volt system. Now, they do make these systems in 24 and 48 volt, if you're curious, and it's depending on what your power setup is. So be mindful of, whatever your power system is. If you run a 48 volt system, you're probably going to need to get this thing up a 48 volt. They do have that, and they are great systems. So far, this system is working terrific. I've got the single fan and the condenser fan. I didn't feel I needed the double. It's loud enough outside. I mean, it's not crazy loud, but when it starts up from the inside, it sounds like an airline jet kind of taking off a little bit. But it's, just your typical fan. If you're up on the van, you can hear it. There's something running inside. But, this particular van I have is pretty stealth in the sense that you probably don't know 100% whether I'm in the van. So what I want to talk about is some things that you're going to have to be aware of, and some things that you're going to need in this build, and things you're going to need to do. This particular build is for the ProMaster. I don't know about any other van or the Sprinters, but I'm doing this for the ProMaster. Now, I will tell you, there is another video that's being done, and about the time this is out, it may already be out. Jared Tocci, he's a YouTuber. His last name's Tocci, Jared with 2 R's, Jared Tocci. I'll put his link down below in the video. He's doing a video on a Sprinter, so if you need to know the Sprinter, he can guide you as to how it's mounted up under there. There are several ways, and we'll talk about how you can mount that fan up under the van. I mean, if you want to put it on top of the van, you can, but these things are mostly intended to be mounted up under the van, but that's not to say you can't do it. But I'm going to tell you, you need to read the manual and ask the questions and pretty much have a clear understanding of what you need to do here. If you are unsure, and I'm telling you right now, if you're unsure of anything, if you don't know how to do the electrical, which is not hard on this system, but electrical in general, if you don't know anything about refrigeration or installing this thing and you're unsure, please, I can't stress enough, please find somebody who can professionally help install this for you, because this could be a very expensive mistake, and it could be very dangerous in the sense that you could get hurt. You got to be very careful what you're doing here. That's with anything in these vans that you build, electrical and everything you do. You have to understand some things. I had a really good friend of mine help me put this AC unit in. It's just because he and I can put our heads together and fit up on how we really get this condenser mounted. And he's, done refrigerant with housing, and he's put some in cars. A couple of these, parts of this were new to him, but he understood basic things, and I learned a lot out of it as well. I mean, it wasn't anything I couldn't do, but there were things about charging the refrigeration stuff that I didn't know about that I would have had to have hired somebody to do if I hadn't had him to help me. I knew the electrical. That's my background. I wired all the electrical in this van. But I can't stress enough, please, 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 if you're unsure, get somebody, because I'll go into telling you that this unit can depend on the unit you get. I don't know all the pricing levels of these units. Mine, supplies and all, probably ran me around $4,600. It could run, depending on shipping and things you get, $45,000 to $5,000. I can't give you an exact price because every unit is different. I can't quote something that Cruise and Comfort be like, well, that was for his unit. I don't want to give a set price and go, well, Chris Williams said it was $4,500. It just depends on the system that you buy at Cruise and Comfort and what you're getting, because there are some things that I'm going to talk about in this video that you're going to have to get by way of wiring, breakers, ring terminals, and stuff like that. And I will break all that down for you when we get to that point in the video. I'm going to kind of show video, and I'm going to kind of do it as a narration, talking through the video, because there's a lot of talking in the video and music in the background that I could get copywritten for, and I don't want to do that. I just want to be able to show you video. I may have some time-lapse stuff, just kind of following along what we're doing and explain to you what we used. And I'm going to kind of tell you there's some supplies or things you're going to need to get for this. It's not a lot, but there's some things you're going to need to know. And every build is different. This really, when I asked the questions for cruise and comfort, Chris Fry said every build's different. Every vehicle is different. There's so many different ways of things that you can use to mount that condenser fan or to place this blower unit. But there are some things that you're going to have to do, and we'll go over that. So with no further ado, let's get over to that. Okay guys, as I said, there's a few things you're going to need. You're going to need some supplies here for this thing. This thing's going to come shipped to you in two forms. One, you're going to have the condenser fan and two lines. That's your high and low lines. Those will come first, and the evaporator unit will come, and you will have the evaporator unit. You will have a 12-volt power cable to the condenser fan, which you will wire to that fan. You'll see that when that comes in. Also, there is a choice of two thermostats. You've got a manual and you got a digital. I would recommend you go with the digital thermostat here. It goes automatic, and you can set your fan speeds and do things. It is extra. It does cost extra, but it is so worth it, and I would do that. Now, you can't use any thermostat with this. You got to use theirs. It is designed with that system, and Cruise and Comfort can explain that better. That they can do. As you can see from the picture here, I did not get that big black thing, which was a vent. We'll get to the part of the video that you can put your own 4-inch blower hose on that. You will need some supplies. You'll need 4-gauge cable, red and black. I would say get about 8 feet of pieces. You're going to have to cut 2 sections of the red from the unit to the breaker, and the breaker to the positive bus bar, and then from the negative to the ground in the negative bus bar. You will need a 70 to an 80 amp marine grade breaker. I will show that in the video. It is very important you do that. You're going to have to drill some holes, so we will show how that goes as well. Like I say, in this picture, you'll see that there's a hole in the top. They've since quit making, mine had a hole in the top, but that was the old style and had the blower come out the top. They don't do that anymore. The blower comes out the front, under where you see the fittings on that. There are fuses on board with that, and we'll show all that, where all those connections come to play when we get to that part. As you see on the side of that unit is the return. You'll need to get the filter. I'll show you how to do that. Alrighty, I want to talk a little bit about the fan. We're installing a Cruise and Comfort air conditioning in a Dodge Ram ProMaster, a 2020. Generally, these vans from the start of the build of these to this year, they're all pretty much the same up under. We're going to get up under, and we're going to show pretty much where we're going to place this fan and what we're going to do. Cruise and Comfort has an option for 2 fans. They have a double fan and a single fan. I only opted for the single fan. Just didn't see where I needed a double fan, and it seemed to work. There are 2 7-foot lines for the send and return on that to the condenser fan from the inside unit, which we'll run. We'll have to drill 2 1-inch holes, and we'll have to run them from the evaporator unit out under the van to the condenser fan, and we're going to show how we're going to do that. At this point, we're kind of juggling between 2 different ideas how we're going to mount that fan. We started the idea with galvanized pipe straps, and then we're kind of going back to slotted metal. It's not galvanized, it's steel pieces of metal that you can get at Lowe's that we've already painted black with Rust-Oleum, just in case there's any rust. We can prevent that. So we're going to pretty much show you where we're going to do that here in a moment, and I'll show the fan on that deal. Okay guys, as you can see here, we chose a different type of metal. That metal you see there, you can get at Lowe's. It's that Hillman metal. And you'll see where we'll bend this and contort it to fit around that condenser fan, and how we bolt it onto the fan here. We'll show that in a second. But those are about $7 a piece, and as you can see, he's marking places for to drill holes. And we're going to use screws, and the existing screws there in the condenser fan to bolt them to that. And you'll see how we bolt that. All right, now you can see if I can get a better angle here. You see where we've screwed. Those screws you see were already on the condenser. So what we did is we drilled holes in the metal in a couple of places safely that condenser. And I can't tell you to be enough to be careful. You've got that condenser there. Don't drill in there unless you know you've got a safe spot to do it. But we screwed and used existing screws there and just bolted that metal right onto the condenser. And where we bent it is the angle that we're going to do that. You see him bending it there, and what it is we took a construction square, like or a triangle, or whatever you choose to use, and the angle of this thing's got to be from 11 to 15 degrees, fan to the bottom and the coils at the top, and it's got to be angled downward towards the front of the van in such a way where it's for a couple of reasons, and Cruising Comfort can explain this better. But the big fitting has to be above the low fitting, which is the high fitting. The small fitting, I'm sorry, large fitting above the small fitting, and it's the way that it all flows, and basically air flowing through that and the lines and such. And there's a specific reason, and they can tell you much better than me, technically speaking. So we'll get this and then lead into how we mounted it under the van here for you more effectively here in a second. Okay, folks, now as you can see here, this is kind of a time lapse. This was the biggest work of this install, is getting this compressor put in. Now, pay no attention to those wires. I didn't realize I was getting a provided 12-volt wiring for the fan to the box, and we took that off and put on the wire it's supplied. Now the instructions will show you exactly how to wire that to a single or double fan, and you'll see that how that plugs into the evaporator, and then you crimp it onto there. Now what you also notice is you got to be very careful about, there are brake lines. You got your emergency brake cable there and lines above, as well as your exhaust. And there are a few ways you can put this under. You can put it where we're putting it. You can put it where the spare tire is, or sideways. This just seemed to be the better place because I was not giving up my spare tire whatsoever in this process. Now, you have to be very careful. We bend this metal. You'll see us with a hammer, and we're getting the screws into the frame. Just make sure it's angled. It has to be angled about 11 to 15% downward. And that downward is towards the front of the vehicle. Fan below, and the rest up top. And the Cruising Comfort can explain to you in detail why it has to be like that, but the larger fitting has to be up higher than the small fitting, and the high side lower, low side higher. They can get technical, or they can tell you exactly why that is, but that's how that has to be. And this took us quite a bit of time, and as you see, you have to be very careful when you're clearing that to get all that in there, and also where you'll see is the exhaust is close to these lines. These in and out lines are about 7 feet apiece. You're going to have to get them cable tied as well as clamped to the frame and wrap around very carefully on how you run that, what you do. Also, you'll need some heat shielding, like manifold exhaust shielding that you can tape on, and you'll see in the videos where I showed you, we've zip tied those and got those put on very well because the exhaust is close, and for the sake of those hoses, you do not want that affecting that in any way. You will need to get some clamps, as you see. In the second, you'll see some clamps with rubber fitting in the center to screw them into the frame where it holds those hoses. But you see right here, you see where we've got that heat shielding is zip tied, and you see those clamps right there, those with the rubber in it. It's holding those lines bolted into the frame and up to the bottom of the van. You'll get a better angle here in a second. Sorry about the movement of the camera here. I'm trying to get up here and get an angle of how we got this in, but you see the heat shielding on the exhaust right there. This is all just trying to make sure that nothing gets too hot around those condenser lines right there. You get a better shot. You see that white wire, that's your 12-volt wire supplied to the condenser fan. We had to go back and rewire that in. And you're going to want to probably run that wire in with a small line up through the floor, so you don't have to drill a separate hole for that wire. But you see the zip tires, and you'll see how we ran those. Just, you don't want too many turns, and you don't want it to go in certain directions where it affects the flow of those lines either. Just be very careful. You see where we actually heat shrinked and we taped over that very carefully on that. But you see all these lines and stuff up under, you have to be very careful. You see where I bolted it into the frame right there. You have to be clear of any brake lines or anything's going up under. Now, I do not know anything about other vehicles like the Sprinter and stuff. Like I said earlier, Jared Tachi is doing a video on the Sprinter. They may have done it differently, but this is how the ProMaster goes. And since the ProMaster has been in existence here in America, not much has changed on the other side that I know of. I've had an RV that was a ProMaster, um, and I didn't have to do anything with that, but underside is pretty much the same. Now you see the screws right there. You see the metal, how it's angled, how we screwed the metal into that condenser. We use the existing, as I said earlier, the existing screws on that condenser. And it gives you a really good idea. This is what they call the high side, but it's a smaller fitting and it's lower and it's going towards the front of the van, and it's raised up, angled up towards the rear of the van there. You see the lines where they run back and they go up towards the back. And you'll see in a minute, I'll show a picture where we have to drill 2 holes and they'll come into the evaporator there. You're also going to have to, and I'll show you later, some drain holes. We'll show those drain lines. You're going to have to drill 2 more holes for the drain holes. But you get a good tube of silicone and such, and you'll be able to do this. I think I said earlier, when those lines went up, you can get grommets and drill it wide enough it goes into the floor, or you can, like we did, is we took some of that clear tubing and just cut it up a little bit in pieces, because the hole was so small. We shoved it around that line, around the metal, and put silicone under it and on the top side so it didn't cut into those hosing, my apologies, because the hose, you just don't want it rubbing or anything or moving, and you don't want that metal cutting into it. It could be a bad situation for you if that happened indeed. But like I said, there's a better angle of it coming down. I wanted to show that. And as you see, the line come up and it comes around and back up. To the left of the screen and up is where we went up into the floor, into the van as well. You'll also see there are no wires hanging around anywhere. You have to be with good cable ties and a lot of stuff in these round clamps. You have to be very careful. Everything is strategically and safely taped in the right place, because you don't want anything hanging, you don't want anything getting hit. I know a lot of people have asked, well, what about a shield on the front of that and rocks and debris and stuff getting on that? Folks, as far as I'm told, these things are made to handle that, and you should be just fine on that. I guess I'm doomed to find out at some point, but I think everything is fine. These are under stuff like ambulances and government vehicles and various other vehicles. You see them on the back of 18-wheelers. They seem to handle fine. So, okay, folks, coming inside here, you see 2 holes. Those are your condenser line holes coming in from under the van. Your electrical 12-volt wire goes to the condenser fan will need to come in with one of those, probably the smaller hoses, one smaller than the other, and it goes straight into the front of that unit. Now, you need to pay attention to the fact that you're going to have to drill 2 more holes, and those 2 holes are going to be your drain lines. There's one in the front and one in the back. I asked, but it makes a world of sense when I got the answer, why 2? Well, one in the front and in the back. If you're going up a hill and it needs to drain in that trail, it's going to come out in that tray in there in the air conditioning unit. That fluid is going to drain out the back, and the water will drain out the front. It's just an extra hole. So, and you will see that as we get inside and I show you the tubing and how the unit is set up. But you're going to drill about 4 holes in the bottom, and that's just the way it is. But okay, folks, coming into the bottom here, as you can see, we installed a return vent right there. You're going to need that. That is very important. You have return that goes into that return. So if you get one from Lowe's, simple return vent, we screwed into the door there. Now, coming in, as you can see the unit, you see your condenser lines plugged in there, and that white line, and plenty of cable there. That's your 12-volt line to your condenser fan. There are fuses, as you see those yellow things next to it. And under that is a connector for your thermostat. And as you can see, your red and black line, that's your 4-gauge cable going to your power for negative and positive to the bus bars, you'll see in a second. But you see your white cable there goes in the condenser, and next to it to the left under your fuses is that connector for your thermostat. Below it is the opening for your 4-inch blower hose, which I'll show you in a little bit. That blower hose will come out and go over the top towards the back. Now, you see the holes there where it's going, and we need to put some silicone in. Coming up, you see the positive to the bus bar and negative to the ground bar. We've got that attached. And then there is your breaker. You need a 70 to an 80 amp marine grade breaker, waterproof. Also, I forgot to tell you, on your 4-gauge cable, you will need some ring terminals on the ends of those cables. You'll need 4 3/8 ring terminals and 2 1/4-inch. The 2 1/4-inch go on your breaker. Right here is your return vent. You will need to either get a filter, put it on the inside, or do like I did. I'll show you in a little bit. It's Velcroed, a rewashable, usable over the front, and I also put one on that top hole there. And You're also going to need to open that thing up and check that tray to make sure everything is draining properly as well. Maybe clean it. Folks, as you can see, there's drain tubing with webbing. You'll need that. You'll need to probably get about 6 feet for the front and the back, just to be sure, not too long. You're not going to have to go too low below the floor of the van to do it, but you'll need to drill 2 more holes in the bottom of the van. Now, you see that hole there, you're going to have one in the back and one in the front. You will need to get some hose clamps with that, 3/8 hose clamps, and put that. Very simple and straightforward. As you can see here, I used a washable, reusable filter. I velcroed over the front. You can put it inside or on the outside, but you will need a filter. I put one over the top of that hole just to keep dust from getting in. It doesn't serve much of a purpose. Now, I will also tell you guys, out of respect for cruising comfort, they've asked me not to show the inside of this unit, and it's their wishes. I have to respect that. But you will need to, if you don't know anything about refrigerant, you need somebody professional to help you. It's automotive refrigerant, R134A. You will need automotive vacuum lines as well as a pump. We did a 2.5, I think, if I know correctly, CFM pump. I went to Harbor Freight and got the pump and the lines. It was about $150 for everything. But if somebody professionally does it, you need to have them call Cruising Comfort to read the manual. You do not need to add oil, and do not use refrigerant that has any additives for like leak sealing or anything into it. Just use the straight refrigerant, R134A. It's very important. They tell you don't add that oil, and that will help. Okay, guys, I want to talk about the blower hose. It's most recommended that you use something that's non-conductive, because that hose coming out is really close to those electrical connections that are coming out there to the side of that, and you want to be very careful. If that thing were to come loose and touch those connectors, you don't want that to happen. It could be very costly. So this particular hose here is kind of a rubber or plastic, kind of a bilge hose, and you want to make sure that it's 4 inches. It's one of these you can get at West Marine or a boat store or something. Just something that you can cover with some form of insulation if you want to, of your choice. Maybe foam tape, or I use sheep's wool because I had it in the insulation of the van, and I think it works very good. And you want to get about 8 feet, and I think that will work really well for you. You don't want to go beyond that. You start losing momentum on your blower, and being able to get that thing cooled. I ran my blower hose out the front and up, and I just took some zip ties and zip tied it to the frame of my bed and back right up just above my mattress. And that diffuser that I showed you earlier is angling air where it's going up towards the ceiling, and it's dropping cool air into the room. You can angle it however you want, whatever works best for your situation. And as I said before, and say again, every build is different here. And what might work for me wouldn't work for you, because your build is set up differently. So pay close attention to those directions on how the unit should be placed according to a different kind of space. They have 3 or 4 different scenarios that are really good in there that can teach you how to do that. And like I say, you have the PDF manual, but you'll also get it in the box, and it's explained to you straightforward and very well on that deal. So that blower hose you can get on Amazon here. You can get this at West Marine or any boat store. So it's like a bilge hose, and not hard to find. It's 4 inches, and that should work fine for you. Okay, guys, here I'm just showing kind of images of the unit when it first came in, but I needed to cover something. This unit is going to have to be stabilized where you put it. Under that unit, there's about an inch, inch and a half. Actually, no, a little over, right about an inch gap from the bottom of the unit down to where you put a piece of wood on the bottom. We took some plywood. It was about 3/4 of an inch, and the screws that are going into the sides of that cover screwed into that wood pretty well. We took a lot of industrialized Velcro from the floor to that board and put it down, and it's not going anywhere. They may suggest, because you're going to see 4 holes that you bolted into the floor. That's totally your choice, but you need to stabilize this unit and make sure it does not move whatsoever. It could be detrimental depending on where it's set. Now, under my bed there, it's all wood and metal and steel. It bounces around. It's not coming out at me, but you just don't want it to move and slide. It could damage that unit. Also, just make sure when you drill these holes, you've got your silicone, plenty of that, and grommets to make sure that no metal is rubbing in these hoses. Your drain plug hoses, as I said, you don't have to come out the bottom. that much. You'll see when I'm showing the condenser fan, you'll see a clear tubing coming down. It's maybe a couple inches coming to the bottom of the van. We just sealed it with silicone. The biggest thing is the condenser hoses. You want to make sure you've got grommets or some rubber. We cut pieces of that clear tubing and shoved up around those condenser lines to keep that metal off of it and gapped them and put some silicone. You want to strap things down, make sure everything's fine. I took zip ties with the 4-inch blower hose and I came out, up, and just tied it to the metal frame of my bed. Went across and it went up just a little bit, just right above the mattress of my bed. I have a diffuser that I got with Cruise and Comfort and bought a little plastic cover diffuser. I'm not exactly sure if it was added in or that I purchased it. I think it was in the kit I purchased or it was added. But you want something that angles kind of upwards towards the ceiling of your van in your room where it blows that air up and it drops. And as I'm telling you, as soon as I kick that thing on, it really cools that room. It's 80 square feet, but you can feel it cooling just in a couple of minutes. It's very important you read these instructions. They're very thorough. The ones that come with it seem to be more thorough than the PDF. I don't know if there's a difference. I could be wrong there. If Cruise and Comfort is watching, maybe you can check the online PDF to the one you send. But just know that, follow that stuff and make sure. If this vehicle has been sitting in the sun baking all day, it's important that you turn on the van AC or the RV and let it cool it first before you turn the system on. It's going to work less and not drain your batteries as bad because this thing is designed to keep the constant of the room temperature as need be. As you can see in the picture here, you see that thermostat. That's your digital. I forgot to show that. That is your digital thermostat, and there's your diffuser in my hand. And I think that digital thermostat is the way to go. As well as you can go online if there's more you want to know at cruiseandcomfort.com. I'll put the link in the description of the video. Go to the resources. You can see the install manual and the brochure. And that's pretty much it, my friends. Well, all right, my friends, the AC unit is installed and it is done. You can hear it running. I'll tell you, what may seem kind of loud, it's not. This is much quieter than those rooftop units you get in RVs, like those Coleman Mach units. And man, this thing works killer. In less than 5 minutes, this room was already cooled. It went from being a little stuffy and hot in here to boom, just like that. I have a return unit, pulls air through it for the unit under the bed here, and it's awesome. Like I said in this video, throughout the whole thing, you need to understand is if there's anything you're unsure about, please get somebody who knows how to do it and help you charge the AC, to do the electrical. Don't do any of this yourself if you're unsure, because it can be a very expensive mistake if you do anything that could go wrong on this thing. Just be careful and just think your way through everything. These are great units, and I can't say enough great things about it. About a year ago, I saw this thing in action up in Oregon. A lady had one in her van. She was retired, and in fact, the video on that is on Cruise and Comfort's website. So the guys at Cruise and Comfort have been wonderful. I can't thank them enough for the help they've given. More than willing to help with anything. Thank you. These are great units. I think I said it right now. The Cruise and Comfort is the only true 12-volt system right now going on that you'll find. I mean, I exhausted my efforts trying to find another 12-volt unit, and you got some Chinese compressors out there, but they're just the compressors. They're not even set up. They're not built. This thing it's almost standing there, a plug-and-play system ready to go, but it's not quite plug-and-play because you've got a lot of work to do, a lot. You got to get this condenser mounted. Probably the biggest work on this thing was getting that condenser mounted. Make sure everything is set, sealed, the lines are run. Make sure you have this thing where you want it and where you're going to have this tube blowing air into the room. Now, I think it would have worked if I'd have gone on the front wall here instead of back there in the back corner, but I'm thinking you probably want your air blowing into the room in the opposite direction of where the return is going. If you have the air by where the return vent is, it could be pulling a lot of your air through the return back in. Yesterday we were testing and running this thing, and it was running fine with that there, but you just don't know, so it was best to do that. So I hope this video helped, and any questions you have, feel free to message me. I don't mind answering them. But like I say, cruise and comfort, man. That's a 12-volt system. I will tell you that this thing pulls 46 amps, but sometimes on my battery monitor I'm looking at, it seems less than that. But we ran it for about 2 or 3 hours, and it probably only pulled 15 to less than 20% of my battery. It's not bad. So that's with it running. I was trying to set it up a lot more than just on and off. So, but anyway, hope that helps. Thank you so much for watching. And like I said earlier, any other questions you have, feel free to ask. And until then, we'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much. Have a great one. Bye.